What's going on? What's going on? Welcome to a another live edition of the Warcry podcast. I'm your host, humble yet a little gracious, Yehola Tiger. I'm gonna let everybody kind of filter in the chat. I know we're early, or actually I'm late. Um, just a little Indian time today for y'all. You know, trying to get a few things going. Trying to get some live streams. One thing that I guess as people kind of filter in, let me know who's in the chat or let me know who's watching. I want to know who's watching so I can steal your IP address and track you down like Liam Neeson. But let me know what's going on, y'all. Res Scares, what's going on with you, Dono, man? You doing all right? We got some things to talk about tonight. As you guys can tell by the, I guess by the caption, I guess you could call it, or the title of the live is we're going to be talking about conspiracies tonight, and we're going to be kind of roping in some episodes that we talked about, or that I published, and that's been recorded, and we'll kind of get into that a little bit. I got some. I haven't really been reviewing much. I'll have a movie review, and then also we'll be talking about a little bit of OU football, Oklahoma Sooners, Boomer Sooner, baby. Also, too, if you feeling like you got a story, or you hear something that's like, man, that sounds like a story that I heard or something. Feel free to jump in the chat, or not jump in the chat. Jump on the stream. I've highlighted, and it's in there on the comments, the stream to come in and tell a story. I'm only gonna give you a few minutes. Now if you got something, you got something. We'll talk. But I kind of want to give everybody some time. Try to take everybody one at a time. Let's see here. Okay. We got Chastity in the chat, watching from the P-Res in Kansas, Potawatomi. What's going on? You doing all right? Appreciate that story you told on This Is Creepy. Especially them Haskell stories, you just never know. You never know what you're going to get with Haskell. Everybody and their mama be having some things happening to them over there. But appreciate you joining me tonight. And like I said, guys, if you haven't been put on notice, tonight we're going to be talking about conspiracies. I got a pretty wild one, man, that I heard. I've been looking into and researching just a little bit. The dates kind of interest me a little bit, and it's a very kind of wild conspiracy. But we're going to be talking about conspiracies tonight. One thing about this show is that I'll be trying to mix it up, trying to not trying to do the same thing or talk about the same topic, or I like to keep it pretty broad. And there was an episode that I had done here lately, I'd say probably a month ago now. Feels like a month ago, I guess, but we talked about aliens. And when it comes to aliens, I have a very kind of a weird opinion about aliens. And one thing that it doesn't make sense to me, and like I said, I've seen videos of people hitting what it looks to be a firmament type thing, where, like, for instance, I think it was Jeff Bezos when he went up, and I believe it was SpaceX went up too. It's like they hit something, like it was like a glass or some type of something that, when they got to a certain point, they dinked off of it, and you could hear it dink like it, like you hit against something. And I have kind of a weird opinion. Like, I also kind of think that there's some type of, aliens could be, us from the future or from the past. We just never know, because there's all these ancient civilizations that people talk about and that are being unearthed basically almost every day. Um, One of the weirdest ones that I've heard is out, and I cannot remember where this is at exactly, but it's out in the Atlantic Ocean. I think it's off the coast of Florida, but or no, it's Costa Rica, kind of next to the Bermuda Triangle. But there's like there's like a little. It looked to be kind of almost like a road, like a old Roman road that they can see under kind of the right off the beach. You know, it goes into the water and it gets deep, but like scuba divers went down there and they're like, man, this looks like a Roman, soldier, your kind of stone pathway, and I can't remember where that's at. I know it's it's around the Bermuda Triangle, but we don't really know what happened, And another kind of thing that when it comes to these ancient civilizations is basically people always say Atlantis is like somewhere in the Pacific, or they have all these plot points of where this civilization could be. And one, I don't know if he's a scientist, but one guy found in like some ancient text of the description of I think it might have been a Sumerian text, but he found that they deciphered it the best of their ability, and they found out that there's this in the Sahara Desert. There's like a circle, but it almost looks like a moat. It's almost like a really raised mountain chain, but then it's flat in the middle, and then it looks like kind of like a moat, like it's like deep. And from like just walking on it, you can't tell that it's been anything, but in the sky you can see, or like Google Earth or whatever, you can see that there's some type of structure, and you can tell, oh, okay, this is not nature. This looks like man-made because it's so perfect in the circles. And so we really don't know what ancient civilizations. And so when I talk about aliens, I'm always so hesitant to say future, because I always think it might be from the past. Because you look at, all this, theories, I guess you could say, of different, things, and especially things such as like Tesla and in the Philadelphia experiment. Like, that's another thing too that eventually I'm going to talk about. There's so much information about that. But how do we not know that they had this technology back, 50,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago, or during the Pleistocene era before the Ice Age, before the Second Ice Age? How do we not know that, how they had that technology and that they were wiped from the face of the earth due to some kind of crazy mud flood, or, the Bible's flood? It's kind of crazy. And so that's kind of why I say future and past, because they're, I also think that they're like, hey guys, how did, after, after we found out that, hey, there's our civilization gets destroyed. Well, after it's destroyed, what does it look like? And then you get into different timelines, and I ain't going to get into that. That's kind of crazy, but there's all types of theories out there that when it regards kind of aliens, and you guys got the pyramids, who like put a one in the chat if you can hear me. Apparently, I am in and out. Can you guys hear me? Man, that's gonna be a shame. I was talking about some crazy stuff on here too. It's the Illuminati. No. Put a one in the chat if you can hear me right now. But like I said, we really truly don't know what is going on. Like, we really don't. And so, kind of fast forwarding, like I said, to the aliens, and the conspiracy that I heard, that I find like really interesting, is if you guys in Aliens episode, and I can't remember if it's episode 33, episode 32, whatever, the Aliens episode that I did, I talked about Phil Snyder. And Phil Snyder has a lot of weird things in his history, in his past, that we're going to talk about right now. And one thing that I find very interesting about him is he's had so much stuff done to him. Like when he died, he only had like 3 fingers on one, or 2 fingers and a thumb on one hand. He also, his brother, or like his sister, was in the CIA. And I just find that very interesting. And so as we look at him as a person, and Phil Snyder, if you have not heard the episode on aliens, I don't want to ruin it. Go listen to it. I tell the entire story of what he's seen in underground bases, and that basically special operations soldiers fought aliens underground. Crazy, crazy story. Well, he was running around with a guy named Ron Rummel, and at the time, these guys were going out to these locations and finding different like weird metal, like stuff like they would be searching out in these areas where like they say there was a crash, or all these famous incidents. They'd go out and look at them. Well, he has all these clearances, and he had access to be able to do that in these locations. Well, he would be bringing back like these weird metals that are not from this earth. And one thing too that's just very strange is he would go to these conferences, and I think the first conference that he went to was a Bigfoot conference. And he had the theory, and this is kind of a theory that pops up in and this is back in like the 80s. Like, nobody was talking about this theory, but the theory that Bigfoot is not from this planet, and that it's from a different dimension. And then he could prove it. Or he said he could prove it. Now, I don't he never had the technology to do it, but he went to, like I said, that's what he kind of put out there, and people thought he was kind of crazy. Well, then he was showing like metals he had, and he had all these weird, like, not from this planet materials. So him and this guy Ron, they would basically travel the circuits talking about this stuff. And his ex-wife, I was listening to the interview with her. She was one of the last people to see him and talk to him before he died. And I'll put that, if you guys can see me, I'm putting that in quotations. And one thing that's very strange about his death is that they didn't do a coroner's report on him, and they just kind of let it rock. Well, they eventually ended up doing it, and they found out that he actually had strangulation marks, because he had been sitting, so he had passed, and then 7 days later they found him when he was supposed to be at this UFO conference. Well, he never showed up. So then they did a wellness check, and they found him, and they found that there was marks on his neck. Now, that coroner's report was never published. His wife at the time went through his house, because I guess she was on his will or something like that. And she went through there, and there was nothing, none of those metals. Like, he hit them in different specific spots, and there was nothing. It was wiped. All his books were wiped. There was a manuscript that he was handwriting, and it just disappeared. And he was going to divulge everything. He was going to name names and do all this. Well, he's gone. Well, then right before that, right then, Ron Rummel, if something happens to him too, he ends up dead. And so, to me, that's very interesting. And it's just a very interesting case. Well, to give some more background on him, his dad, Oscar Schneider, and allegedly his grandpa or his grandpa was allegedly a part of those Nazi scientists that were testing all these different crazy technologies. Now, if you heard the theory that Nazis um, basically were testing and trying to, create super soldiers, and that they had a pact with extraterrestrials, people, things from not from this earth, and it had come out a couple of years. I don't know how long ago, but it had come out here in the last probably 20 years that back in it was right after the war. The U.S. dropped atomic bombs all over Antarctica, and they were saying, "Oh, we're testing." But allegedly, there could have been some ET Nazi bases there, which is very interesting. Yeah, I'm glad you guys could hear me, man. I was dropping some bombs on y'all too, man. I'm gonna take a drink of this water here. But yeah, so his grandfather, was involved in that. Well, his dad Oscar was a high national security advisor, and he was there allegedly during the Philadelphia experiment. Well, he was also involved, and this is the craziest theory that I have that connects basically all this stuff that I've heard. Anyways, like I'm just repeating things that I've heard and that I've kind of looked up. So back in the mid to late 1940, into mid to late 1946, going into 47, there's a operation called Operation Crossroads, and Operation Crossroads was basically them dropping bombs on the Bikini Atoll. So now when we see all those, those old videos of basically something hitting the water and splashing the water up, that's the Bikini Atoll video. That's the one that they want you to see. Phil Snyder or his dad took took pictures of the bomb as it hit. As the bomb hits, you can see, and this is, I saw these pictures on. It's called White Lotus of Life. It's a guy who interviewed Phil Snyder's wife. Well, as they're taking pictures of this, as the bomb hits in Bikini Atoll, you see these metal objects coming out of the water, essentially scrambling, trying to get out of the way. Not too long after that, I'd say probably a couple months, they one of those quote unquote space crafts is damaged and is found in Roswell, New Mexico. And they believe, Phil Snyder and his father believe that was one of those things that they bombed in the Bikini Atoll. And if you guys, and this to connect it even deeper to now, or even to this, I guess millennia, I guess what you call it. If you guys watch SpongeBob, his home is in Bikini Bottom, which is at the bottom of Bikini Atoll. And that's the conspiracy behind SpongeBob, is that bomb created SpongeBob, Patrick, all these mutant beings at the bottom of Bikini Bottom. So that's very interesting. Very, very interesting. Let's see here. I haven't really checked it. That's kind of the conspiracy that I've been kind of looking at, and I just find that very, very interesting. Let's see here. Finally, you guys can hear me. Awesome. Dang, man, I know I was dropping some bombs on y'all. Interdimensional Sasquatch. I see, with that theory, I have a problem with that one too, because I just don't. I know everyone can go, hey, what about Star Wars? What about what about Star Wars? And I'm just like, in the Wookiees. And I was like, well, I guess they were telling us, way before we thought, was Karen Silkwood's death suspicious to you? I'd have to look that up. I don't. I at the top of my head, if you would give me some. Sometimes I'll be forgetting people's names. If you could give me a background on that, Anthony, and I appreciate you. Appreciate you stopping in. I saw you shared the live. I always appreciate anybody that shares the stuff and gets the podcast out, because we trying to grow this thing. We trying to be Indian famous. No, just playing. But we trying to do some things, and I want to. I don't see a lot of. And that's one thing I kind of mentioned on This Is Creepy. You don't see a lot of native voices in conspiracy. I mean, you might. I mean, there may be some people that are tribal members and they just don't flaunt it, or they. But trying to be that, trying to be in that conspiracy realm. But at the same time, man, I'd be trying to toe a line, because I ain't trying to be Mr. Phil Snyder. I'm just a guy doing a podcast. Let's keep it. If you hear me out there and you're like, man, this guy's saying too much. He's giving these people too much right now. I'm just doing it for the podcast. So don't save me. Don't do nothing to me. I'm all right. I'm good. I'm just a guy. Where's everybody at tonight? Anybody got some? I guess let me ask you this question real quick. To everybody listening, what is your favorite conspiracy? And then we'll let it rip after that. We'll go down the line. I'll talk about any conspiracy. But what is your favorite conspiracy? Let me know in the chat now, and we'll get it popping. But while I'm waiting for some answers here, but yeah. So he had his wife. This is his wife. I watched his interview with his wife, and one thing that's kind of strange here lately that I've noticed, and that they mentioned in the interview that I was watching, was that, if you guys ever notice things are like different all of a sudden, like you could be doing something and then all of a sudden it's like the mood changes, or like the feeling you have changes, like all of a sudden, and you don't know why. The theory that they had is that they turned on CERN, and that there's a blending of the dimensions and there's of the timelines, and so like there's been times where like I've been driving and like I forget that I was driving. I don't know. Do you guys ever have that? Like if you're just like driving down the road and you're paying attention, you're just driving, normally, and all of a sudden you're like, dang, how'd I get home? I've had that happen to me before. Now, it wasn't because I was like, anything crazy. I just was driving home from work or wherever, and I'm just like, next thing I know, I'm home or I'm doing something else. I'm just like, man, that was weird. But I always wonder about that once they turn that CERN on, because they just turned it on again, I believe, like last month. And, it's like the Bernstein Bears thing was a big thing. Here lately, I thought Bob Barker died like 6 years ago. But if this dude died at 99, he was still alive. Like I thought Drew Carey took over because he was like deathly ill. I was like, man, that was a crazy thing for me too. I was like, man, I did not know that he was still alive. Oh yeah, Mandela. Yeah, I'm talking about it right now. Mandela effect. So we just, I always wonder if that's like a thing. Like I know people that like what the Mandela effect is named after. Everyone thought Nelson Mandela was dead, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh yeah, we released him from prison," and everyone's like, "Dude, he's still alive." Like we thought he died like 20 years ago. Like people were talking about him. I remember like listening to a news thing and being like, "Yeah, Nelson man," they were talking about him like he was dead. Like Nelson Mandela was a good guy. Then all of a sudden, like he just was released from prison, and I don't know. Maybe people thought he was dead because he was in those, those African prisons, and those ain't no joke. But let's see here. Let's see some answers. Chastity, LPs is not a conspiracy. We know them things are real. Come on now. Okay, we got Mandela effects. Okay. False flag 9/11 stuff. Really, any government stuff, because I really believe they be playing this. Man. Yeah, that's eventually, like he said, I want to get into 9/11, man, but I get the willies, man, when I start talking about stuff like that, because these people are still alive, and I think that's a lot of the reason why a lot of this JFK stuff is being released, is that Everybody that was a part of that is gone, and so you can kind of talk about kind of spicier now. I know. Oh yeah, Sinbad is another one. Sinbad's another movie. And what is Kazam or something or Shazam or Kazam or I don't know what. Yeah, it's something like that. Yep, Louis Anderson. Yep, William Shatner, Jake the Snake. I thought Jake the Snake died like back in like early 2000s, but he's still alive, man. That's crazy. I saw a documentary. Shazam is what it was. Anthony says I'm having a hard time believing that anytime lights show up in the sky and they say they're drones. Yeah, drones being available for civilian use was the perfect cover for some UFO things. Yeah, that's another thing too. That's why I have a hard time with UFOs and aliens, man. Because like we have technology, we have technology to make it look like that. Like we can, add the Photoshop. Like I saw something in a Oklahoma Bigfoot group like. Oh, this is in Binger, Oklahoma, and there was like a picture of settlers and then a big old Sasquatch that they killed. Like, come on now, that ain't real. Like, come on. I know people probably seen that and was like, "Oh man, God, that's the craziest thing I've seen." It's like, bro, that's fake. Like, you can tell it's fake. But but that's why I have a hard time with aliens, man. I have a really really hard time with that because then then when you get into aliens, you get into alien abductions. Is that sleep paralysis? Is that sometimes you kind of fall in and out of that like in the middle of sleep and you kind of see things moving. I don't know. And then also with aliens, you get into the obviously the UAPs or now UFOs or whatever they're called now. You get into those things, but then you also have the government, like it has technology that's like 100 years advanced than what we can see. Like they got planes or jets and planes now that like make zero sound, and like they can fly helicopters in, and you can't even like into other countries, and you don't even hear them, and they take out the leader, and then they leave, and this is all this crazy technology. But one thing I will say that makes me question. That's why my opinion of aliens is kind of a weird one. One thing that does not make sense to me when it comes to that, and this is a hidden history kind of conspiracy. So back in the 1800s, 1700s, or whenever we started, whenever we got electricity, essentially, what in the world? How did we make that jump to now we have cars that drive themselves in like a matter of 200 years? That's what doesn't make sense to me. Like it took us how many the first ever known civilization that we know of that was that was not advanced like we are now, which we're not even really that advanced. We're kind of we're like devolving. But like we look at that was a 200-year jump. How did it take us 50,000 years to go from basically cavemen to now? Like or to 1800. It took us that long, or not 1800, 1700, whenever the technology started to really take hold. When we first get on the light bulb, how in the world do we get that long, and then now we make a 200-year jump, and now we have drones, like civilians are dry or like or can fly like a drone that's the size of a stinking large dog. It's just it just don't make sense to me, and that's another thing that like with aliens, like no way, like no doubt, back in the 1500s they said, "Hey, here is the blueprint to do this," and then this creates that creates that, and now you have airplanes, and then you do this, and this. Now you got basically airplane and aircrafts that make zero noise and they float. I don't know, man. What y'all think? Yeah, Shazam. That's definitely a good one. And people that are like staunch alien people, like this dude's crazy. Like this dude believes in every other conspiracy, but does not believe in aliens. And I know that's hypocritical, but man, I just have a hard time. I have a really, really hard time. Let's see here. Hoofman. Is that like the Goat Man up in the Northeast? That's another thing too about like some of these cryptids. How do we not like? How are we able to genes? Like we go back to clones too. Like how do we jump from, basically not bathing in the 1500s? We weren't bathing. Like we didn't even know what we didn't even know. Hey, if we don't take showers for weeks, you can die from a simple scratch on your arm. How we go from that to being able to clone sheep, clone camels, and then basically clone horses, and then now they're talking about trying to clone and trying to bring back extinct species. Like that just don't make no sense to me. Make it like 1 + 1's got to equal 2. But maybe I'm on one. I don't know. I don't know if I'm just like out. Like I'm not understanding. I don't know, but like I just find that so baffling to me. And like with the cloning thing, people like Michael Jackson, I think he even held back his, like Tupac. Like how we not know that they take their DNA and they're like, hey, let's keep this DNA, and then we'll recreate them like 1,000 years from now, or 100 years from now. And like we always, everybody has these like in movies, and we're going to get into movies conspiracies too here in a second. But like, and I guess we can transition into that now. But like with movies, they always say that the movies tell us that things happen before they're really supposed to happen. And that's one thing that I find very interesting too, as well, is like iRobot. That was made back in the early 2000s. Like, and in the early 2000s, we had Furbies. Like we had Chia Pets. Like we had the most, like no one was thinking about AI and robotic technology in the 2000s. We was wilding out wearing too large jerseys, like jerseys that were too big, jean shorts, New Balances or Skechers, when the Skechers with the Heelys. Like nobody was really thinking about that. But here we are, like 20 years later, in 2023, about to be 2024, and we got stinking robots running around. Like, that's another thing too. Like, what if, and this goes into the Matrix theory too, but like, what if these people ain't really people? And that's another thing I'll be thinking about. Yeah, conspiracies, that's one thing I like when I have to talk about, like when I go to talk about conspiracies on like episodes, I literally have to write this stuff down, because I will, like with conspiracies, it's like, okay, well, this connects to that makes sense over here. And you start going down a rabbit hole and you're like, yo, I'm over here, like I'm down a rabbit hole to where like, hey, now birds and like the pigeons aren't real. Like birds aren't real. They're all machines. Had to put those They Live glasses on. Start seeing all the robots, all the aliens that are around. But so we got, man. So it looks like everybody likes the Mandela effect. Man, I may have to really do some research on Mandela effect, because that's one thing that there's so many of them now, especially with like the weirdness of the CERN and trying to figure out like what's really going on with that. But yeah, man, conspiracies are something else. I mean, I like I said, go down a rabbit hole. Let's see here. I'm just looking. Sometimes it delays, like on the comments. So if you guys do comments, like that's why I'll be silent sometimes. But, and I appreciate everybody listening to the episode or to this live. I'm gonna try to go live more. I figured out that like the way I go live, I can go live more. Really, is kind of what I found out. And so, I'm gonna try to go live basically, I don't know, twice a week. I think I went live 3 times this week. I mean, because I guess I'm bored like that, or I usually try to go live when the kids go down. But like I said, I had been kind of thinking about conspiracies, and I always find a good conspiracy and kind of go down a rabbit hole, but it's kind of moving and transitioning just for a minute, guys. OU football starts. Boomer Sooner starts on Saturday. If I need them, I need them to pull through. I need them to do something for me this season. I cannot take another. I cannot take another year of hearing Texas fans talk about how we trash, and we not really trash. But that's kind of my Boomer Sooner. I had to get it in because football season starts, and when football season starts, I think I'm gonna drop a sports conspiracy. There's a few sports recent sports conspiracies that kind of make me think. One of them that I absolutely have really kind of enjoyed was the people talking about how Jimmy Butler, and he plays for the Heat, Miami Heat. His dad is Michael Jordan. Like that's a crazy conspiracy, and there's some things that connect, and that Michael was running around in Chicago on his wife, and so there's all types of crazy conspiracies. Do you guys have any other conspiracies, or anybody want to jump on and anybody want to jump on and tell a story or talk about a crazy conspiracy? I'm going to post that link now again. Like I said, we're going to go probably another 10 minutes. I just threw a bunch of information at y'all, went on my rant. But if you want to hop in, there's the link. Like I said, you can keep your camera off, you can keep it on, but you can come in and tell a story, or when you can give your opinion on things I've talked about tonight. It's really up to you. But like I said, I want to see kind of what y'all want to do with that. But like I said, that Phil Snyder conspiracy, man, is to me one of the greatest ones, because it's hard to really kind of quantify, talking about aliens and underground bases. And one thing I heard too that was kind of a crazy part of that is that basically those things ate or drank the blood of humans when when their adrenaline's going, like when they're like really kind of heightened adrenaline. That was like their favorite time. Like that's how he described it, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, I think something happened to him, and we may never know. A movie I watched, I guess here, and this kind of, I'm going to get into, we'll get into a little movies conspiracy, but a movie that I watched that I thought was very interesting, and why they would even make this movie was called Reality, and it's about Reality Winner, who basically printed out. This is like 2017. She printed out a like super top secret classified article because she had really high clearance because she was in the Air Force, and then she could speak multiple languages, and what she would do is decipher languages, like classified, language that like no one else could speak, but she would decode it and then send it off. Well, she came across an article that was like super top secret, and that no one had clearance. Like literally, she didn't have clearance to print it off, but somehow figured out a way to get it, printed it off, and sent it into a news company. I think it was The Intercept. And she really really had the FBI coming down on her, like, hey, what are you doing? And eventually she ended up serving. She served time, and she's supposed to be released, I think, this year, November of this year. But it goes into these movies where like The Bourne Identity, or like The Manchurian Candidate, or movies like Total Recall, or different movies like that. I think they are telling us stuff. Like the movie, like I thought a movie that had a very great premise, but I didn't think it was that great, was 65. That 65 million years ago movie. To me, that movie, I think that happened. I really think that happened. Like, we probably came to this planet and mucked it up for everybody, and now you basically killed the dinosaurs, which is wild to think that. To me, I think everything's possible, but I also think nothing is possible. Like, I think that truth is stranger than fiction, but I don't know. I just find that it could have been true. Maybe we were the few or past us were floating around and they were trying to find a planet, and then they realized once they got on this planet they can't leave, and here we are now. 2023, and that was like 65 million. I don't know. Who knows, man? But I find movies and what they say to be very interesting, especially movies when they kind of call out conspiracies. And to me, that's very interesting because, like, the movie JFK goes into like his death, and that essentially the CIA killed him, and we now find out that the CIA did kill him. Now, if that's breaking news to you, I'm sorry for breaking it for you, but the CIA did kill JFK. They had to get him out of there. They had to get him out of there. And that movie, the movie JFK with Kevin Costner, dives into that and talks about that just a little bit. He was doing too much. He was trying to disband the FBI and the CIA, and everybody knows how the FBI, or most people should know that the FBI was created, during the time of the Osage, and that's why Killers of the Flower Moon is coming out. I think it's all just a distraction. I think it's just like, everything, especially like, I was talking to a family member earlier about, hey, there's some crazy stuff going to be happening. They're talking about another wave of the vid. If you guys don't know what the vid is, put a CO in front of it. But the vid is coming again. Come to find out, there's people all over the place getting the vid, and now, they were talking about this last week. I had kind of seen some videos, and there was like a kind of an article that was an obscure article that came out of I can't remember if it was like the Washington Post or something like that. That, hey, there's another wave of it coming. Be ready. And so, all these videos of nurses coming out saying, hey, get ready, it's coming again. And then Alex Jones comes out and says, hey, there's another wave of the vid coming. Be ready. So things are going to happen. Then you got people now saying that they're going to pull their money out of the banks when this happens. Well, if that happens, they're going to crash the entire economy. And maybe that's what that, is happening. I have no idea. I'm just a guy. I'm just some native dude on a rest. I'm here in Oklahoma. I just be talking. But, I see these things, and I always kind of wonder, like, if it's just a smokescreen for something over here. I look at kind of the state of what we're doing now with Ukraine. We're sending more money over there. But that money is billions of dollars that could basically save some people here. Maui, I think the wildfires over there only got like $700 or something, which is wild. Hawaii's cost of living is so high. $700 is like maybe a week's worth of groceries or something. Like, craziness. And so we're doing that, but then we're doing this, and then now we got like all these movies coming out. Like, everybody's waiting. Meg 2 came out. Killers of the Flower Moon's coming out. Everybody's talking about, hey, by the way, there's another thing coming. We got this happening. People are pulling their money out of the banks. BRICS is happening, and then it's just a lot going on, and we truly never know what's real, what's not, and that's the smokescreen that they pull on us, and I think movies have a really big impact on that, because now we're looking at 2023, 2024, and we are in the middle of a writer's strike. Well, how are these movies coming out? We're in the middle of a writer's strike. Did they produce these movies back then? It's just and then now everybody's focused. Oh, we got to pay these actors, and these actors get paid millions of dollars, while some people working somewhere for $10 an hour and working 60-hour weeks, 70-hour weeks to make sure they provide for their family. It's a weird time, man. And I think, and I hope that, one day that we kind of wake up. But one thing that George Carlin always says, and I'm going to end the stream here, but one thing he's always said, it's the American dream, and you got to be asleep to believe in it. Guys, I appreciate you tuning in. Like right now, to help the podcast out, I got an Amazon I got Amazon link. So if you go buy your Halloween costumes from Amazon, part of those proceeds come to, obviously I don't have no dealings with it. I just have a partnership, so I'm promoting Halloween costumes. Everything that you buy when it comes to Halloween costumes, a portion of that comes to the podcast. Obviously, it's going to help it out. Eventually, like I said, I'm going to be doing video. I'll be adding video when I get we get it built up. Interviews are coming. I got one interview scheduled tomorrow. It's going to be a banger. I'm so excited for that. I'm not going to ruin who it is, but it's going to be a lot of fun. It'll be posted this weekend. But you guys can, if you're hearing this on the back end, Yahola Tiger on Facebook, on Instagram, and TikTok, Warcry Pod. Go follow that. More interaction. Like I said, I'm trying to grow this thing because, to me, I think, like I said, there's not a lot of people like me that are saying these things that are in the community that I'm in. And so I appreciate, the ongoing support, and I appreciate you guys who, listen to the podcast. Every time that I put an ad in there and you listen to it all the way, man, helps the podcast out completely. And I appreciate everybody that does that, even though, we live in a time where, like, hey, I can go pay an extra $3 a month to not have to listen to ads. But like I said, everything is kind of instant gratification. But I appreciate everybody that listens. And like I said, hit that link if you need a Bigfoot costume, go through there, look and see if you can find you a Bigfoot costume and get yourself some. And like I said, help the podcast out. And also, I got a link in there too as well for all the content and every links to everything. So if you don't want to, if you don't like having the ads on, or not the ads, if you don't like not being able to close your phone when you're on YouTube, there's a link for all the audio podcasts. And like I said, guys, I appreciate you listening in, and I'm gonna catch you on the next one. Y'all have a good night.